for joining us this evening. I'm Laura. I work in the Challenge Events team here at Teenage Cancer Trust, and tonight I'm joined by Tom and Nick. They are running experts from Running With Us, and we're here to answer all your questions about fundraising and training for the 2018 Virgin Money London Marathon. As many of you will already know, Teenage Cancer Trust is hugely excited to be the 2018 Virgin Money London Marathon Charity of the Year. It's a really massive opportunity for the charity to not only raise a huge amount of money to support young people with cancer, but to also raise awareness. And so we're really pleased that in 2018 we'll have our biggest ever team of runners and volunteers flying the flag of Teenage Cancer Trust. We call our team Team Legend because they really are the most inspiring and dedicated group of people. And it's not too late for you to join them. So whether you've got a ballot place in the 2018 Virgin Money London Marathon, or you see yourself maybe as more of a cheerleader, we would love to welcome you to our team. So we'll just start with some introductions. As I said, I'm Laura. I work in the Challenges team, and I do practice what I preach. I've done a number of challenge events myself, so I do appreciate how hard the training and the fundraising can be. Earlier this year, in July, I took on the London to Paris bike ride to raise money for Teenage Cancer Trust, and I've also done quite a few 10Ks, I've done a couple of half marathons, but I do have to confess I haven't braved a marathon just yet. So if I come across to you guys, Tom and Nick, and if you could tell us a bit about your backgrounds and how you got into coaching, great.
Do you want to kick off, Nick?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Lovely to be with you tonight, and thank you, Laura. We're delighted to be here as the coaches for you on this journey that you've got coming up all the way to the end of April. And from my point of view, I've been running now for 37 years, he whispers, and I've been coaching for over 20. But it really has been a journey of working with everyone from all speeds and backgrounds. I'm a personal trainer as well, so I really have run with people that are perhaps running for the first time. We work with young athletes, absolute beginners, right the way through to some of our performance athletes who are trying to qualify for World Championships or Olympic Games and so on. So over those 20 years, I hope that the experience that's been gained is going to be really useful for you tonight in your journey towards training for this wonderful marathon experience.
Well, Nick, my background's a little bit different to Nick, but I've been coaching now for getting on for 10 years as well now. You can see the grey hairs from all the stress of athletes racing marathons all around the world. Similar to Nick, I work with runners from beginners right through to elite athletes. And together, Nick and I, over the last few years, have really loved our journey working with runners, particularly focusing towards the Virgin Money London Marathon. So we're really looking forward to supporting you all this year and answering some of your questions tonight.
Brilliant. We've got, so far we've got about 500 runners who have signed up in the marathon in April, which is brilliant. And there's a real range. There's a lot of people who have never run before, so they're taking on the challenge for the very first time, right through to people who are already marathon runners, but they might be going for a PB or trying to, improve their style of running, that kind of thing. So we have received a few questions ahead of tonight's session, so I think we'll kick off with a few of them, see if we get any in on the live feed, fingers crossed we will. If you would like to send a question, please just post it beneath the video link and we'll try and come to some of those as well. So a few questions that we've had in. One that keeps coming up is people asking how far they should be running by Christmas. Like, what's the aim and where should they be at now? What are they aiming for?
I'll start then, shall I?
A definite look.
The thing here is you're going to be one of several types of people, I think, at this stage. You're going to be either super organised or perhaps a little bit in denial, or perhaps Christmas is just a bit bigger for you at the moment than you're running. I don't know which it's going to be, but I would almost plead with you that if you could just get a few things in place now, if you're completely new to this running game, which is fine, to be at a stage where maybe you can run for half an hour to an hour by Christmas and actually just what we call run at the speed of chats. And that means that you've got your imaginary friend with you or your friends with you, and you really can run along and hold a conversation. But that might be quite a big journey at the moment, so maybe it's actually wise to target your first ever 5K in 5-6 weeks' time. And if you're walk running at the moment, that will gradually build and become more running than it is walking, and maybe targeting a 5K by Christmas means that when you start the beginner's marathon program that we've provided for you after Christmas, you're kind of hitting the ground running and you're really ready to go. If you're pretty experienced, and this is where I get a little bit worried actually, to be honest, we see people trying to run too far too soon. And then we see the injuries and the burnout, and people are in great shape in February and March and tired by April. So you know, I would actually, if you're pretty seasoned at this, be looking at maybe running some, or target a 10k before Christmas, something like that, or maybe say to yourself, your longest run before Christmas might be an hour to an hour and a half, or we often say 10 miles by Christmas. And if that's you, then you're in great shape as an improved and a more experienced runner to really start your marathon training middle of January onwards. 16 weeks is a long time to do a training plan, so don't do too much too soon.
Yeah.
But equally, please don't wake up at the beginning of January and suddenly think, gosh, I've got a marathon to do and I've done nothing when we're talking to you tonight, because anything you do now is laying the foundations, really.
That moves us quite nicely onto another question we've had in. So a few people have asked, they've said about being able to do some running now, but when should they start following a proper plan? When does that kick in, that they should be kind of doing that structured training programme?
Well, the training programme that we've written for Teenage Cancer Trust is 16 weeks worth of training. So really, this year that's nice and neat, because that's pretty much just like, again, at the beginning of January. So that's kind of your new year sorted, and I'm sure you'll all be kind of excitedly awaiting and commencing your training plan. But as Nick was saying, I think the important thing is, as coaches, obviously, when we're writing training plans for you guys, we don't know all of your backgrounds, and we don't know exactly what you've done in the past, what injuries you may have, and really your lifestyles. So if you do have the ability to get out and do some training now, it really, really will set you ahead of the game, as Nick said. So just because our training plans take you through 16 weeks worth of training doesn't mean that you can just bury your head in the sand and forget about it until January the 1st. If you can get some training in now, it really will kind of give you a boost and make those early weeks of training that bit easier. And we always say that these training plans are not tablets of stone. It's really, really important you take ownership over them. And if that means you're starting a little bit further ahead than those early weeks of our training plan, great. That's not going to do you any harm, provided that you don't get too greedy too early in those weeks.
And if you're really unsure, then pop us a question anyway, and we can give you some advice, and we can always give you, one or two plans to get you ready before Christmas as well. But don't go running 2-3 hours or so for your longest runs now. That's in February and March, so build up, you've got lots of time.
If anyone in the team so far hasn't seen the training plans, we have posted them all on our website. So if you go to bealegend.org/run, there's a section on training, and the training plans are in there. There's also contact details for Nick and Tom, so if you want to ask a question, you can get in touch with them as well. I think that's some kind of weird door lock going on behind us.
We're live in the office, so it's a real life studio. Okay, go with it.
Had another question from another Laura actually, asking what's the best way to stay hydrated on long runs. So she said she's always nervous about drinking too much in case she gets a stitch while she's running. I'd be interested in this one as well.
The rules of hydration have changed a bit, haven't they, Nick, over the years?
I think, if we're honest, that there's been a little bit of a danger in recent years for people to almost comfort drink. There's so much water available out on the course on the day, which is a good thing in the sense that you need to sip the odd bit of water and try and stay hydrated. Same with the sports drink that's available for you as well. But the danger is as well that nerves kick in and you start to comfort drink, and then you start to take in a lot more than you need. There's been the odd case of hypernatremia where people have drunk too much, and effectively you're flushing the minerals and salts out of the body, and it's just dangerous to say the least, and that's where the issues perhaps lie. So for us, we would say that the message these days is very much more to drink a little bit more towards first, and think a little bit about a strategy that you practice in training, crucially, that then you take into the race with you and you do on race day as well. So at the moment, it's pretty cold outside, it's about 5 degrees, it's going to be a cold few weeks. There would be a temptation not to drink at all sometimes when you're running. Well, maybe that's not such a good thing. If you're going to do some longer runs, I would still sip the odd bit of water, the odd bit of sports drink. But it really is a few sips, and it really is perhaps every few miles or so. The drink stations at the London Marathon will come up every mile or so for water. They'll come up for sports drink more so every 5k. So if you were to have the odd bit of sports drink every 5k or sip some water every 5k, and you've got your gels as well to consider, that's going to really, really help you. But practice it in training, and it is an art form to actually drink and at the same time try and keep moving. So if that means you slow down to a walk and you walk briskly and just sit, that's great. If you can maintain the pace you've been running at and learn to drink. And it's a small mouthful, carry on running, small mouthful, carry on running. Rather than drinking loads and then wondering why you've got a stitch or it's uncomfortable. Think about your stomach wall here is already moving and quite irritated. So when you introduce something to it that it's got to digest, it's really to a point going to get a little bit upset. So a little bit will be absorbed into the bloodstream and will hydrate, will be far, far better.
Nick, we've got here on the table some of these electrolyte tablets, which I guess kind of relates onto that question, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
What do these do?
Well, these kind of tablets and there's a number of brands that make them. If you were to drop one of these tablets into your water, water won't necessarily contain magnesium, potassium and sodium in the volumes or at all that you need. And those are the kind of electrolytes or minerals that you're sweating when you're running. So for the body to be better hydrated, sometimes it's really wise to keep that going into the system. So these tablets will actually dilute into the water or dissolve, and they will provide you with the kind of magnesium, potassium and sodium that you're losing through sweat, which will then enable you to stay better hydrated and to regulate the body in a better way. So I would get used to drinking those kind of products. The sports drinks that you'll have on the day, it's Lucozade, did the Virgin Money London Marathon, so that will have what you need in it. If you're going to drink Lucozade on a day, I would get used to drinking Lucozade in training. It makes real sense.
That's a horror story.
Exactly. But if you're not going to drink that, then try some of the other brands out there and practice in training what you're going to do on race day.
I've used these ones before because they come in loads of different flavours.
Absolutely.
So you can try different things.
In short, I mean, we'd say you don't need to be, if you're well hydrated in your daily life as well, and you're going into your runs not already dehydrated, you don't need to be drinking gallons loads when you're actually out on the run, which can be a bit of a pain anyway, because you've already got, obviously when you're in training you need to carry your water with you. So the key thing is also to make sure that you're really well hydrated before you go into your training runs, and because often people are doing them in the evening or whatever, forget to drink enough during the day, they hit their evening runs, and then of course they are having to kind of gulp down fluids when they kind of don't need to.
So stay hydrated all day and it'll be much easier for you. Much easier.
Brilliant, thank you. Just had a question in from Emily, who's asked what types of cross training are best. So when she's running, what else should she be doing?
Good evening, Emily. Thanks for the question. It's a really good point, actually. And I'm going to bring Tom in as well on it, because this is an area we talk about a lot to runners. One of the perhaps the misgivings is that to run a marathon or be a better runner, you've got to just run, and you've got to run lots and lots. I'm telling you now that if you're only running 2-3 times a week, certainly 3 times a week, you can actually run a very good marathon. And you can train for a very good marathon. So if you have to manage your time and you're a busy person or you've been injury prone, a long run that gradually progresses, maybe a run that has got some sort of threshold type work in it, which we will explain tonight, and maybe a run that you do before breakfast just to get the energy systems working in a different way, which we'll explain. Those 3 runs will be very wise. Anything above that is layering on some other key elements, but cross-training could be your way of actually layering on some extra work without the risk of injury, because when your heart is being exercised, it doesn't know the difference between going for a run, going on the bike, rowing, aqua jogging, swimming. So effectively, if you're doing those 3 runs and you're doing some cross-training and you're working the heart, you're actually getting fitter and you're stimulating a response. So you will continue to build your endurance towards doing your marathon. There are some very clever ways to cross-train. We would say there's 2 types. One is the aerobic cross-training, which is you working your heart, working cardiovascularly on the bits of kit I've just described. But the other type is your conditioning, and that's really working on your strength and your posture, because the marathon is very much about holding your body and holding your form for 26 miles. And if you are strong, so you've got a strong core, some of the key muscles that you are moving and working with to be a runner are being strengthened, then in theory, 16 miles onwards, when the marathon does become hard work, I'm afraid, actually your body holds together and you're stronger to complete it. But we work with runners all the time using cross-training, don't we?
Absolutely. I think people look towards cross-training for a variety of different reasons. So for some people it is a case that they're injured or they've had a niggle and they're coming back from that and they don't want to jump back into running too soon and perhaps re-injure themselves, which is we would absolutely recommend cross-training as a great way to bridge your way back into running. If that's the case, you need to be sensible about picking cross-training options that don't aggravate the injury that you're experiencing to start off with. So things like swimming, like aqua jogging, that are totally non-weight bearing.
Just for everyone, what is aqua jogging?
Aqua jogging. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it as the most stimulating cross-training option, but it is highly effective if you've had an injury. So aqua jogging is quite simply what it sounds like. You're in the pool, perhaps wearing a buoyancy belt for if you're new to it, and you're literally running upright as if you'd be running outside, maybe slightly over-accentuating the movement, driving your arms and legs that little bit more, and you run in a pool, you only move forwards very slowly.
And you're in the deep end?
You're in the deep end.
You're literally treading water.
Yeah. And lifeguards these days don't suddenly kick you out because they're much more used to you doing it. And actually, because you're suspended in the water, it's totally non-weight bearing, and because you're replicating a running movement, we're actually, but against resistance, we're actually strengthening key running muscles even more than you would do by going out and running. So it can be a really, really effective way to get back into training. And actually, even if you're not injured, it can be a really effective way to boost your training volumes if you're thinking, well, actually, if I had another run, potentially that might be the one that breaks me or leaves me getting injured. Aqua jogging is a great way to do it. Elliptical training, because again, it mirrors the running action, so that's the elliptical, or some people call it the cross-training machine in the gym. But there's been great examples of marathon runners, right up to very, very good standard marathon runners, achieving great times from cycling as well.
Yeah.
And it really, really can. We would say, look, you have to enjoy your training. And we're realistic as running coaches, we're also cycling coaches and triathlon coaches. We know that not everybody loves going out and purely running. And it's really important that you do enjoy your training. And these other training methodologies can really help kind of stimulate you by just having some variety. I've got plenty in the national media coming out over the next month with cross-training plans that I've written. So if you do want to check it out, we'll be sharing all of those.
It's on our website as well,
yeah,
so there's lots of articles on cross-training. It's also in the training
guide
that we've supplied for you. So if you have a look at the Teenage Cancer Trust training guide, which complements your marathon plan, all the information you need is in there. So it's good.
Cross-training is also quite a good way to avoid some wet, rainy visual.
Well, no. Hang on a minute.
That's sometimes when I do.
We're going to talk about that.
We've had another question in. Emma, who is a busy working mum, she's asked whether it's okay to do the majority of training on a treadmill. I know there's a couple of people in our team as well who are
okay, so treadmills. Look, first of all, if it's safe for you to be on a treadmill because outside it's dark, which it will be most of the time, unfortunately, between now and certainly March, and we're going to go into the tough months now. But if it's safer for you because you don't want to run on your own, you're somewhere new, you don't know the area, whatever it is, then please go on the treadmill. That makes total sense. If it's icy outside and there's just nowhere else to run, go on the treadmill. The thing I would say is that on race day, the road doesn't come towards you.
Yeah.
Okay, the treadmill does. The treadmill is slightly easier. You can put the gradient up to 0.5 or 1%, and that will slightly get it nearer to what the road feels like to make it as hard. But the reality is that you are as well, when on the treadmill, you're recreating the same foot plant every time because the bed is so flat. So you don't get that on the road, you don't get that when you run off-road. So the muscles are actually working in exactly the same way, and there's a danger actually that you can recreate an overuse injury more quickly by always running on the treadmill. So I would ask you to run off-road. If you said that if you had some lovely trails or a forest near you that was safe to run in, it's not too muddy, it's just nice underfoot. If you were to do 50-60% or so of your running off-road, and perhaps 30, 40, 50% of your running on the road, that's a really good balance, because off-road you've got less shock coming up through the body, so you're less likely to pick up some of these overuse injuries. You're still keeping in touch with the road, so your body's used to it at 16, 18, 19, 20 miles in the marathon, which is important. And use the treadmill as much as you need to, but please, if you can't run anywhere else, get on the treadmill, obviously. Go and do that, but don't see it as your only go-to place.
And we have to say, I mean, whilst there have been one or two examples of elite athletes using treadmills a lot in their training, when you get to the point that your long runs are extending out towards 15, 16 miles, honestly, spending that much time on the treadmill, A, does represent a higher injury risk potential, and B, can be incredibly boring. And we do really, there is a real joy. One of the real joys of training is actually getting out into the world.
Yeah, really.
so use it as a tool, but carefully, I think we'd say.
Yeah, good answer.
I hope that answers
that
it.
helps,
But
Emma. Yeah.
just remember, Emma, as well, that Christmas is coming up, and you need to order a lovely long sleeve running top, a lovely raincoat jacket, some hats, some gloves, some running tights, and all those things you're going to need to keep you warm when you run outside, because that's better for you to be on the treadmill.
Or a nice sunny holiday somewhere where you can get some running, maybe.
Come and join us in Portugal.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got some more questions in. So Sue
Right.
has sent a couple of questions in. And this is around carb loading. And Sue's mentioned how people talk about carb loading, but then there's also people who kind of say, oh, it's not really a thing. Or how true is it? How much do you need to carb load?
Gosh, right. Well, it's out there in the sense that you could carb load. I often say to people, though, why are you doing this marathon, and do you really want this to take over your life, and are you, in theory, carb loading was something we did a lot of perhaps 20, 30 years ago in the sport, because there weren't the gels, the sports drinks available, so the theory was that if we took on more carbohydrate, we actually would be able to run the marathon in comfort for longer before we hit this wall.
Yeah.
But the reality is now that with better nutrition and understanding of it, with taking gels, sports drinks, whatever, on board as you're running around, actually eating a normal, sensible, balanced, healthy diet and normal amounts of carbohydrate will probably make you feel more comfortable on the start line and should be enough. In the old days, people would, at an elite level, actually about a week before the race, they would do a really long run. They then would come back from the long run and not eat carbohydrate for a few days and be really, really depleted of carbohydrate, pretty irritable, tired, vulnerable to infection.
Yeah.
But there was quite a lot of evidence to suggest that if they then started eating lots of carbohydrate later in the week, the body super compensated and they saw perhaps a minimal extra storage of the carbohydrate, or glycogen as it's called once it's stored, and that worked. I don't think you need to do that these days. Actually, very few elite athletes do that. Some do, but very few, really. I really would keep your diet normal. So don't carb load. Look to stay always energy topped up. So we always say never hungry, never over full. And really focus on what you can take during your run to boost your...
So I can't use it as an excuse to just load up on pasta. No.
We do have this sort of pasta party moment sometimes, which I can understand. And the problem is, we say to people, look, in race week, we're trying to encourage people to not really do anything totally new.
Yeah.
So if the day before or 2 days before your key long runs, you've not been absolutely stuffing yourself with pasta, why do you need to do that on race day? And actually, people do tend to find they have some digestive discomfort, as Nick said, and some of that's because we've kind of got caught up with this, all the national media will be doing pasta party stuff, and we get caught up with doing what we think we should do as opposed to what we know works for us. Carb loading, and the other thing to say, without going too heavy into the science of it, the faster you run, if you're a Mo Farah or a Paula Radcliffe, you're going to be running a marathon for less time than us being mortals.
I'm not one of those.
Neither am I, so that's fine. But those guys are going to be, Nick maybe, but those guys are going to be going out running a lot. They're going to be running at a higher intensity, fundamentally. They're going to be running at a higher heart rate, so they burn more carbohydrate during the marathon. For those of us who run a bit slower, we burn a greater percentage of stored fats, and actually our carbohydrate demands, while still really important to keep them topped up, we don't need to be doing anything too crazy with the carb loading before. So we generally say, as Nick says, because your training is going to cut back a little bit during the taper, if you eat the same, that gap between what you've been eating and with your training cutting back, that's your carb loading.
Do you know, a great tip for this is the day before you do your long runs, just start to maybe write down some of the meals you have the day before your long runs. Hopefully you've had a good breakfast, good lunch, evening meal and some snacks in between, so you never had these big dips in sugar. You were all day long, your blood sugar levels were good. If the night before your long runs a bowl of brown rice and whatever it is worked for you, or it was whole grain pasta or jacket potato, whatever it is that works for you, maybe that's a good thing to think about the day before the race, because it's going to probably work for you again. And the morning of the race, which is the one we always talk about as well, is actually no different to the best long runs you've done. So I think once your long runs are over 90 minutes long, you definitely need to have breakfast before you go, and that could be an hour and a half before, 2 hours, 3 hours before, depends what works for you again. And you know, people talk about porridge, it's not the magic solution, but it might be one of the food groups that works for you. It could be whole grain bagels, it could be you know, some toast and jam and a banana, it could be some energy bars and toast and jam, it could be a combination of those things, maybe some yogurt, maybe a little bit of fruit, but whatever it is, it's some food that you get on with that's got some good complex carbohydrate in, it's easy to digest still, and it's going to make sure you start your long run feeling comfortable with good energy reserves. And that's the key really as well. So suddenly binging doesn't work. It's being normal and just keeping topped up.
I know a lot of people use different running apps as well to track their runs, and a lot of them have note sections in, don't they?
Yeah,
so you can always
absolutely,
make a note of kind of what you ate the day before that run and see if there's any patterns that you notice that you do, you know.
And you know what as well, I mean, on this whole subject of keeping notes and diaries, this is a lovely, it seems strange, it's going to fly by this amount of time over the next 16 weeks or more. We've got 20 weeks probably now or more. So if you get into a habit of writing a little note down next to all of your runs, how it went, hopefully positive, little things you did, things you tried, you'll look back and those are the things that you're, at times when you're, maybe you've had a cold or maybe something's not gone quite right, you'll remind yourself of all the training you've done, and you'll just remind yourself race week when the gremlin's on your shoulder and chatting to you about how you got it right and how it really works. So take some notes and enjoy the journey. It's really important.
Definitely. Another one from Sue, this is quite different. She's also said about struggling with shin splints and whether you've got any tips for that.
So shin splints, I mean, it's a common one. We hear it a lot. Shin splints is a sort of slightly catch-all term. So for a generalised pain down the front of the shin, so down tibialis anterior that runs down the front of the shin. There's many reasons why you might be having pain in that area, and we would always say that whatever advice we give here, we're not physios. We can give you sort of general advice, but actually if this has been something that's been persistent for quite a while, it's really important to go and see somebody, a physiotherapist, a sports physiotherapist who will be able to look at you as an individual person, because where we can offer maybe some generic advice, actually the specific cause for Sue, it may be very, very individual to her. But in terms of sort of general stuff, well, a lot of the causes of that sort of, more technically termed sort of medial tibial stress syndrome that you get, this pain down the front. Tight calf muscles is a classic reason why people experience this. And they tend to not think of it because you're getting pain down the front. But actually calf muscles, these are the muscles that sit at the back of your shin. Because they tighten up, what can end up happening is you can end up pulling on the muscles and the connective tissues around the front of your shin. It can cause a lot of pain. So tight calf muscles, stretch your calf muscles a lot. Perhaps even a little bit of foam rolling. We've got a foam roller here to show you what we mean. So this is a foam roller. You'll have probably seen this sort of weapon of torture in various different shops. And if you get online to our website, www.runningwithus.com/foam rolling, we've got some images there, and I've put together some tips for how to use this sort of thing, and particularly calf muscle foam rolling, which will really, really help. You need to get and make sure your shoes are right too. All of our foot strike and the way that our foot pronates is different. All runners are different in that way. If you're getting perhaps a little bit of excess pronation and that's causing a bit of torsion through the lower limb, that can be a classic cause of shin splints. If you're doing a lot of running in hilly areas, or actually a lot of running on a treadmill, is another classic, because that can really tighten up the calf muscle.
So pronation is the
roll of your foot. Roll of your foot.
More, it tends to be the excessive pronation, so what's termed as overpronation, tends to be more a cause or a trigger. It's not always the case. We would say the terrible twos, too much, too soon, too often, too far, would also. But this is what the jury, to a point, is out. There's so many different triggers for shin soreness, if we call it that. I would say for all of you, whether you are running 3 times a week or 5 or 6 times a week, I would get a sports massage, sports therapy session once a week, once every couple of weeks if you can, from somebody who's used to seeing runners, because that can really, really help the muscles as well. Stretch lots every day. It really, really helps, as Tom said. If you've got shin soreness, it's not the end of the world as well. A very good physio will probably be able to keep you going. You might be looking at taping, so you might tape the shins and just reduce your training or do more cross training for a little period, or just reduce some of the runs, or get on some softer surfaces, wear your new shoes. What you mustn't do is if it's grumbling away at sort of 2 or 3 out of 10 in terms of pain, but you know every run you're doing it's getting worse, please stop.
Yeah.
That's only going to go one way, and then suddenly you're going to miss 3 or 4 weeks or longer, and that has a big impact. So get those things in place. The sports massage is the other things, and we've got some compression sleeves here as well, which really help. So if you wore, I mean, they're calf guards, they'd be worn between here and here. That will just help a little bit with muscle oscillation, and at the same time pushing more oxygenated blood through the muscles in terms of recovery and in terms of performance. But again, it can, for some people, make a big difference in how their calf muscles feel, and then how things like shin soreness or even further down towards Achilles and so on feel.
We have had a couple of questions about compression wear.
Yeah.
So are things like that, are they kind of preventative? Do people wear them from the outset, or is it something
Both.
you might wear?
It's both
if you're
now,
feeling-
definitely. So
Okay.
yeah, we would say wear it during, because it's going to help you feel better. If you remember, a number of years ago now, Paula Radcliffe famously wore her flight socks when she ran her marathons, and it worked for her. It will reduce muscle soreness and the onset of the tightness during the long runs and the race itself. It will squeeze more oxygenated blood through the muscle, which means your performance is slightly better. But crucially on your recovery as well, well, we'd wear a full length sock for it then, not just a guard for the recovery. You're getting more oxygenated blood into the system, so your legs will feel better if you wear these after your runs, particularly your harder runs and so on.
There's a sort of bit of science out there to suggest that sort of convenience return, so the improvement of blood flow back to get more, as Nick said, oxygenated blood back down to the muscles can actually improve. It's in a small amount, but everything counts your actual running performance, so it slightly affect your VO2 max. But what these also do is the compression reduces muscle vibration. So where a lot of runners tend to get very tight calf muscles as a classic for this, each time your foot strikes the ground, 2-3 times your body weight plus going through your lower limbs each time your foot strikes the ground, and that muscle vibration, just having something to support that, has been shown to reduce some of the delayed onset muscle soreness that you can feel.
But I think it's another one of those Christmas lists, but make sure they're the right size as well. Don't just go by colour here because it matches your hair colour or your favourite trainers, whatever. This is something where you need to probably go into a proper running shop and actually be fitted or measured, or go onto the brand's website and they will show you the measurements. So take your own measurements and then make sure that they are the right ones for you.
It needs to be properly
graduated. Graduated compression that is really a good fit and binding as well.
I would definitely just
Otherwise it's just a flash leg warmer, which is totally different. It doesn't work.
I guess sort of just quickly go back to Sue's point about shin soreness and all injuries really. A physio will tell you, and they're quite right, that no injury is an isolated issue. You know, your body is a complex biomechanical system, and generally what you may think of as the cause being directly in a very acute area, it can often be something related to your biomechanics or weakness further up the chain. And that's why we really there are some key bits for say, shin splints, whatever, and again, look on our website, we've got quite a lot of advice on that. But it definitely shouldn't, particularly if it's been hanging around for a few weeks. Compression, bit of calf muscle stretching, actually no, you need to really go and see something and get some tailoring.
And get in touch with us as well, because we can probably give you half a dozen tips to help solve this. Keep you going, and you know what? A few weeks later, you'll be back in full training. You'll have kept your fitness through cross training, which is crucial. So keep cross training, and then having done that, you'll line up at the marathon, feeling great, and you're still going to run the Teenage Cancer Trust. So it will work. So get in touch with us early. Don't just do nothing.
If you do need to get in touch with the guys as well, the contact details are on our website. So if you go to bealegend.org/run, in the training section, there's contact details, there's your email address. And if you put in your email #TeamLegend, we'll know that you're part of the Teenage Cancer Trust team as well.
Exactly, and we'll get back to you within a couple of days latest. So we look forward to talking to you.
This is a good one. This is quite a long question.
Here we go.
So this is from Paul. Paul started running in February this year. He did Birmingham Half Marathon in 1 hour 35. London will be his first marathon, and he wants to run in under 4 hours. His first question is that achievable?
No.
His second question, kind of part of the question, he's also planning to attempt several marathons during his training, so doing that distance several times during training. Is that okay?
Do we know why?
I'll tackle the easy question to start off with, and then I'll let Nick tackle the difficult question later on. It's not actually that difficult. So Paul, look, provided you get your marathon training right, from a 1 hour 35-minute half marathon, we would be really looking for you to run probably closer to 3:30 or faster, and actually maybe even closer to 3:20. To give you some perspective, without I don't bang on too much about my running, but I ran 1 hour 35 for my first half marathon, actually a bit slower, 1 hour 40. Within a year, I'd run a 3:01 for the marathon in my first marathon. So, obviously, the purpose of your marathon training is to get you fitter. So, your 1 hour 35 half marathon right now, by the time the marathon comes around, we would hope that that would have actually improved as well, obviously. So, I think from the place you're in at the moment, yes, you can definitely achieve that, and maybe your sights could be set a little bit higher. But it's really important that you do marathon training, and quality marathon training. If you go into the marathon, and Nick will probably cover this in a second, if you go into the marathon tired, it doesn't matter how fit you are, you won't run that 4 hours. If you go in already spent from the training you've done in the past, and we see it time and time again, and it takes bravery and guts, marathon training. But Nick, you kind of cover this. For say one of your elite athletes, what's the furthest they'd run as a longest training run, would you say? If you're elite athletes?
Gosh, probably anything from 22, 23, 24 miles. Very, very, very rarely does one of the athletes I work with actually cover the marathon distance in training. And these are people that will be running as men well under 2 hours 20, and women that are running under 2 hours 40. They'll all run probably 22, 23 miles as their longest run. But with clever things built into it, which will be the progression of pace or blocks of marathon pace. So they're practicing actually what they're going to have to deliver on race day, crucially within that run. My worry, which is what Tom's alluding to, is that for those of you out there that are looking to run 4, 5 hours, 6 hours for the marathon, if you go out and do a 24-mile run a few weeks before, which would be your longest run, the danger is you could be out for 4 or 5 hours or more for your longest run. And my question to you is, are you really going to recover from that before you then line up on race day? So we see a lot of runners leave actually their marathon in training probably 3 or 4 weeks before because they ran for too long in terms of time. So try to step away a little bit from the miles sort of aspect of this, and think more about my longest run being perhaps no more than 3.5 hours. And if my longest run is 3.5 hours, we seem to see people recover from that if they do that 3 or 4 weeks before. But we see a number of people not recover when they run longer than 3.5 hours as their longest run in training. So Paul, my friend, I don't know you, so I don't know whether you're running a number of marathons as part of your build-up to the Virgin Money London Marathon, and in fact you're raising more money along the way, which is fantastic, because that's a different story and a different journey altogether, and it's about you enjoying that journey, and the London Marathon is one of those races, and perhaps it's the final one. But if there's a real desire here to run very well at the Virgin Money London Marathon in April, and you're just going to go out and run a number of long runs, I would actually look at, probably, because you're running very well, look at our Improvers plan, and actually try to build those long runs in a way that steps up gradually, and perhaps every 3rd or 4th week it cuts right back to give you a chance to recover, and then it builds up again. And we put some marathon pace in, which is close to 3 hours 30 marathon pace within those long runs. And it's all in the plans for you. But if you are doing some other marathons in your build-up here, maybe use those other marathons as just very slow long runs, and then have a very easy week the week after, where you do maybe some light running but cross-training, and you recover well with good nutrition, and really you try to still peak and do the one at marathon pace in April, which is the Virgin Money London Marathon. We don't really know enough about you to advise completely there, but I think just be very careful, because you don't need to run that far in training to run a marathon.
And I
really don't.
That is it, probably for a lot of you watching, the long run will be your kind of, not obsession if you like, it sounds negative, but it'll be the thing you worry about the most.
Doesn't it?
It does, and actually as coaches, we can absolutely tell you now that your long run is not the absolute be all and end all of all of your training. And even if it's going to take, the marathon is going to take you 5 hours plus, I strongly would advise what Nick said there. Any minute beyond 3.5 hours, I would say is going to hurt you more than it benefits you. And that's regardless of whether it's going to take you... So if that means you're running your longest long run is perhaps only 18 miles, honestly, there is more benefit to you doing that than running for 4 hours in your longest training run, being so exhausted that on the day, you've got nothing left in the tank to run.
Yeah.
And so, Paul, yeah, as Nick said, if you're doing it to raise extra money for the charity, that's absolutely fabulous, and please go for it. If you're doing it for performance reasons, you won't run your best marathon from the
I don't think so. I think it's unlikely. I'm not saying you won't. I think it's very unlikely.
I think that's really helpful. Thank you. I'm going to do one more question about training and then do a couple on fundraising. Jackie has said that she's heard a lot about interval training.
Yeah.
She's not exactly sure what it is and whether is it necessary? Is it something that needs to be built in?
Well, look, I mean, interval training is out there. There's many different versions of it. In its purest form, actually, it's the recovery, which is the interval. That's what we're measuring. But let's keep this completely non-geeky and just because we speak to other coaches all the time, and there's so much sports science and history and great information out there. But the reality is the marathon, and I'm going to try and keep it very sort of on track here. The marathon is a totally aerobic event. It's you working with oxygen and hopefully working with a combination of carbohydrate and stored fats, as we've described. Now, to work with oxygen, roughly speaking, you're going to work in an aerobic training zone, which means you're going to be working below 85% of your maximum heart rate, very crudely, because there will be variations in that. There is a certain amount of research out there to suggest that if you do some interval training where you are working really hard for short periods of time, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you're going to get a very good response cardiovascularly and your heart will get stronger. So we boost what is your VO2 max and even something called speed endurance. The only point I would say with that is you're sometimes in danger of training energy systems to run a 5k, 10k a little bit better, and not always, and bear in mind these are people that I'm talking to here, I hope they're running 3, 4, 5 times a week, not the world's fastest athletes who need to keep in touch with pace and work in different energy systems all the time. So I think you will get a better response if your long run, and this is really important, is actually in the first 8 weeks of your training, your long run is run probably 30 to 60 seconds a mile slower than your planned race day pace. Really super easy conversational. If you don't know what your race pace is yet, don't worry about that. That really doesn't matter. It's just got to be fully conversational. So if me and Tom are running our long run, we can have a conversation together really easily as though we're not even having to think about breathing. We're just chatting and running. That's an ideal effort level because that's probably going to be around about 6 to 7 out of 10 in terms of effort level, 60 to 70% of our maximum heart rate. Now there's a zone above that, sort of around about 80% or just below, just above 80%, which is this threshold area or tempo running area, which we've had other questions on. I know. So you could, if you're very clever, and I mentioned this earlier on, if you do 3 runs a week or 4 runs a week, your long run, and then we would definitely advise that one of the units is some threshold running or tempo running. Now this isn't an elite form of training. This should be something you're doing as a beginner, as an improver, as an experienced athlete. This will work the top end of your aerobic zone. Do you remember I said everything up to about 85% is aerobic? Yeah. So if we worked in a zone that's probably 85 down to 75, and I said there's some leeway either way there, providing you're keeping it at 3 or 4 word answer pace, controlled discomfort, we're working what we call our running economy. We then know from physiological data that that is where we see the biggest aerobic response to the heart and your body's ability to, or your heart's ability to push out more oxygenated blood, its stroke volume reduces, improves rather, and the ability for you to run for longer at sustained effort is there. So if you could once a week do, and it might start off like our plans do, 3 by 5 minutes of threshold work, that becomes 4 by 5 minutes, 5 by 5 minutes, 3 by 10 minutes, even a longer sustained block of threshold running built into a run during the week. As your training develops, that's fantastic. And that doesn't matter whether you're Mo Farah in April, who's going to be doing 10-mile threshold runs and longer and clever things with that, or whether you are, Paul, who we spoke to before, who's perhaps going to build up to doing 3 by 2 miles or 3 by 10 minutes of threshold work built into some of his runs, it's going to have the same response. And it will really, really work. You can do it cross-training as well.
Okay.
It will work. So that's one form of interval training. There are interval sessions out there which are things like 30-second high-intensity bouts of work, where your heart's coming out your mouth and you're exhausted, you're going to be sick everywhere, it's just so hard. Do you know what? Great, well done.
No, it's not great.
It's not actually relevant to you running a marathon. You're training the wrong energy system, and it won't give you 26 miles on race day. It just enables you to work hard for 30 seconds or for a short period of time. That's not what we want. We're training the body to work hard and long. So I think be very, very careful with interval training and choose the aerobic type intervals as your precedent, or your your priority, not precedent.
Brilliant. That's really helpful. I'm going to go into a couple of the fundraising questions we had in prior.
Yep.
Don't worry, I won't make you answer.
Wow.
It's really important you get organised with it. It makes the journey easy.
It does, yeah. It shouldn't be separate from the training, really.
No, that's it. So someone did ask what our top tips are for fundraising, and I'm going to answer this one. My absolute top tip is planning. Some people have already started their fundraising. Some people I know like to get a bit of the training under their belt before they tell people that they're running, because it's a bit daunting to initially tell people that they're training for a marathon. But yeah, planning is absolutely key. So whether you're someone who's thinking of organising maybe one big fundraising event and planning, to have an auction and a raffle or something at one big event and raise all your money in one go, that's great. Some people like to think about it, like to split up the months and maybe plan a few smaller fundraising activities so that they're doing something at work, or they might have some school-age kids and the school might be willing to do a non-uniform day, and with the kind of money coming to Teenage Cancer Trust, that kind of thing. But whatever you're planning, I would just say, have a think about it now. Think when's the best times to do these different activities. If you're planning, a big event that you might want to do at Christmas, you might want to do a Valentine's Day event, that kind of thing. We've got loads of information on our website, balegend.org. Myself, my colleague Jordan, who a lot of you have spoken to on the Facebook group, we're always here to answer questions, give fundraising advice, that kind of thing. So always give us a shout. And if you've got any questions, just email us on challenges@teenagecancertrust.org. Another question that came in was someone wanting to ask local businesses to support their fundraising and whether they need a letter or something to show the business. We can provide you with a letter of authority which confirms your fundraising for the charity. If you email us at challenges@teenagecancertrust.org, we're more than happy. Just include the details of your fundraising, so include the planned date and where you're going to be doing your fundraising, that kind of thing. We can send that out to you. Alternatively, I know quite a lot of our supporters use the registration letter in their welcome pack, and that's also fine. But again, if you have any questions, just give us a call. Another question that came in from Claire was about our cheer squads along the route and whether we will have cheer squads there on the day. We will. We'll have loads and they'll be really loud, because that's who we have at our cheer points. We'll be making a lot of noise. We'll have a huge presence on race day, and we will be cheering on every single Teenage Cancer Trust runner. We'll be cheering on all the runners, but we'll be keeping a special eye out for runners in our best, and you'll definitely hear us. And we'll be sending out lots of information about our cheer points, so family and friends can join us, and it's easier for you to spot them and them to spot you, because we'll all be pointing you out and shouting on megaphones and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it really does make a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it spurs people on.
It's good to have your relatives, friends at different parts of the course, and to actually look forward to seeing them when you're out there. And you will get tired moments in the marathon. You'll get good miles and bad miles, and suddenly when people are shouting your name because it's on your vest or your t-shirt, and your charity's there shouting for you as well, it really lifts you.
And
so
we'll have cheer points at regular intervals between 3 miles and 25, so there'll be lots of points at which people will see us, so that should be
and the relatives and friends can come and join you and really feel part of the day. And have you got an after event function as well, where people can come and meet you?
Exactly, we've got a post-race party which is very close to the finish line, so we'll be sending out invites to all of our runners. You can meet family and friends there as well, so it's an easy place to kind of gather and meet and have some refreshments, get a massage, much needed massage at the end.
And just to say as well, I mean, the London Marathon team is so welcoming. It's just such a fantastic perfectly well organised event that you're going to get looked after throughout the day anyway. So to really enjoy it, really enjoy being.
We have loads of people volunteering as well at our cheer points and our post-race reception who are just brilliant, and they're really supportive of all our runners. We're going to have our biggest team ever of volunteers for 2018. We are looking for more volunteers, so if anyone's keen to get involved but doesn't fancy running the 26.2 miles, if you want to have a look at our website, bealegend.org/volunteer, there's lots of information of sort of other ways to get involved and descriptions of how you could get involved on the day, and also there's a form you can fill in if you'd like to sign up, and then we can send you more information about volunteering.
And if you come to the expo as well, which to see you guys, we'll be at the expo as well, so if you've got any last minute worries or you need us just to remind you how good you are and it's all going to be okay, come and see us. We'll be at the expo. We can chat to you as well. So that last minute MOT to get you to the start line, it's all there.
I've just had another question in from Emma saying, Laura, why aren't you running?
I don't think that's one we can bail you out of.
We're going to try and persuade her next year, okay? She's got a lot on her plate this year with organising you lot, but we'll try and get her out there next year.
I don't know, I keep trying to get the day off, but I think I need to work. I will definitely be there. I will definitely be there from early in the morning right till the very end. I don't know, do you know what, I've always said that I'm not sure I could run a marathon, and this year I'm so inspired by all of our runners, and actually chatting to you guys, I am beginning to think like maybe I do have a marathon one day.
The marathon is, we firmly believe that the marathon is, unless you've got a physical reason why you can't run the marathon, and honestly, and hopefully this will reassure some of you, we know from years and years of coaching and working with runners who've literally just started, the marathon is a very achievable event, provided you're a bit organised, you plan your training a bit sensibly. We know that on race day, and Nick, I mean, it might be worth you saying, actually, you know, what is it that gets people around? I mean, when there's if there's an emergency happen, that's a good story, you should probably say.
Well, I mean, I think first of all, if you're really behind on your training, just bear in mind, this is a really important fact, because the marathon's a game of chess, and you've got to plot your way through it, and you've got to be patient in training and patient on the day. It takes weeks to build fitness, and it takes miles to run a marathon. If you were on race day to do probably something like 5 minutes easy conversational pace running, 5 minutes brisk walking, 5 minutes easy conversational running, then 5 minutes brisk walking, and keep repeating that over and over again, we know that you're probably still going to run pretty close to 5.5 hours. Now, one of the peak times for finishing the marathon at London is around 5.5 hours. So if your aim is to get round and achieve this distance, just that strategy in itself will get you round. So if you're behind on training, don't worry now about trying to run the whole thing. There's time with that. The other thing with it all is that you're probably sitting here now, some of you thinking, I still don't know if I can run 26 miles. It's too far. But let me put it to a different way. If the phone rang and you were here with us now, and the phone rang in the corner, and it was, and we often use this on our training days as an example, it was somebody really important on the end of that phone, and they said, look, you've got to get to me now, I need you to be here for whatever family or friendship reason, and it was really important. And there were no planes, trains, automobiles, bikes, undergrounds, nothing was available, just a pair of running shoes here, some gels and bars that we'll give you, some water. Do you know what, I know you get that, because it means something to you. But the thing is, you'd probably have to walk more than you run at the moment, because you haven't yet done the training, or you might have to reduce the pace, because you haven't yet done all your training to be fast enough. So I would really urge you now to stop worrying so much about the distance, respect the distance, because it needs respecting, but actually you can all cover 26 miles, you really can, or 26.2, because 0.2 is important.
Sport psychology is a huge area, but in very, very simple terms, having a motivation that transcends just that kind of physical discomfort. The marathon's a tough event, that's why you're doing it. But actually, the motivation for the reason why these guys are running for Teenage Cancer Trust, when you're there on a day and the crowds are cheering your name if you've got it on your vest, and then the London Marathon, it is amazing. We've run marathons all around the world, including some of the biggest ones. The London Marathon is a very unique atmosphere, and you will be cheered like you are a superstar. You're going to have millions of people cheering for you on the way round. And honestly, the level that will lift you will see you through. We want you to train so as you have an even more enjoyable journey, but you will get round.
Yeah, Absolutely, and we'll be there.
5 minutes left, I think, haven't we? So
We do, yeah.
final questions.
Final questions. Oh. One final
Here we
question.
go.
Oh, it's for me. Sophie said, how many runners so far? Sophie, we've got just over 500 runners now in Team Legend, which is brilliant. It's really exciting for us, biggest team ever. We're hoping to have a team of 700 by race day. If anyone has a ballot place in the London Marathon and you haven't yet signed up to fundraise for charity and you'd like to join Team Legend, we'd love to welcome you to the team. If you visit our website, bealegend.org/run, you'll see the form to sign up. We'll send you your free running top. Make sure we get your invite to the post-race party. You'll obviously have access to support from the guys that are running with us, which is brilliant. And yeah, we'd love to see you on race day.
And don't forget the training day.
Oh, and the training day. We are organising a training day, again, with Running With Us, mid-Feb, Saturday the 17th. It's a fairly small event, so places will be limited. It will be first come, first serve. But we will make sure that any information that we're providing on that day we'll share with the rest of the team as well. So we'll get more information out to you about that in the next month.
And really, please come along and register it, whether you're very, very new to the sport or whether you're pretty seasoned and you've done it many times before. We'd just love you to come along. I'm sure if you've run before, we can get you a little bit faster if that's what your aim is. But if you're sitting here thinking, gosh, I really don't know if I can do this, please, please, please come along, because we will make sure that you leave knowing that it's achievable.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's about all we've got time for this evening. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in and also for sending in your questions. That was great. We'll go through, if there's any we've missed, we'll go through and answer them. And if you'd like any more information on either running or volunteering, please visit bealegend.org. And a big thank you, Tom and Nick. Thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom with us.
Total
Thank
pleasure.
you. Good luck, everyone. We wish you well, and please keep in touch.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.